Let me start this by saying that I wish Donald Trump was not our president. I wish or hope that Joe Biden is not our president. It may be idealistic, but my wish is that the great people in America, the best of us, the most qualified, the most logical, the most empathetic, the best people that we have, I wish they were the ones in the highest offices, to become president. And I don't believe the current choices are that, but it's the world we live in. I say that because I want to talk a little bit about Donald Trump. And I know, obviously, whenever you do, it gets very polarizing and divisive and political, naturally, and partisan, etc. The issues I have with him aren't necessarily on the policies, although I do disagree with some of them, as I disagree with some policies all around. I think the whole idea of the two-party system is a little bit too simplistic. But my biggest issue with Trump, as I've said before, is he should be better. He should just be better as a person. He should be working more towards an objective to unite the country. He should take opportunities to do that, to try and build bridges. It's not that I don't think maybe he's been, what's the word I want to use? Targeted maybe in some ways, but a lot of that he brings upon himself. And, the best of us should be able to rise above that, not stoop down to it, particularly as president. But what's interesting about him is I hear this a lot. I see it on social media. I hear people talk about it. The idea that he is not intelligent, that he's stupid. He mispronounces things. He's made some suggestions that are maybe bad. There's evidence. There's things people point to towards it. But I mention that because I think it is faulty logic to go down that path. This idea that he is unintelligent. Personally, I think intelligence, there's some base level of it for sure, but to some extent it depends on the activity, right? If you put me in front of the engine of a car and try and get me to figure out how it works, I'm going to appear unintelligent. If you put me in a philosophy class or a math class or whatever it is, I will appear more intelligent. So it depends on the context, the environment. We talk about it a lot, like what game you're playing. And I think what people often mistake his lack of intelligence for is they assume he's playing a game to be the best president that's ever lived, to do the best job possible at bringing the country together, building bridges, driving prosperity, those types of things. And I can understand why, if you thought that, you would look at his actions and his rhetoric and different things, his policies, and say, this guy's an idiot. This guy's a moron. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's when you shift your perspective and say, hey, maybe he's playing a different game. Maybe he's an idiot when it comes to engines and cars, but when it comes to math, right, to stick with the metaphor, he's not that stupid. And if you think about Trump, and you say, what game is he playing? From what I can tell, it's kind of a few different pieces that all connect to the same game. It's remaining in power, right? It's obtaining, building, maintaining power. It's feeding his ego to an extent, which we all do. He just seems to be a more unique, extreme version of that. And he's trying to, I guess, in doing those two things, he's trying to drum up, rile up emotion, right? Because he seems to recognize that if he says things that piss off one group, they're likely going to make another group happy, and vice versa. If he says something to make one group happy, it's probably going to piss off the other group, and that's only going to strengthen, right? We've talked about it in the past that his goal seems to be he doesn't want to speak to all Americans and have rhetoric and policies, and his approach in general isn't to say, hey, I want to try and speak and reach out and help as many people as I can. There's a base of people he knows if he wins that base, he will maintain power, feed his ego, and continue to be president, etc. And that's really what he's going for. when you look at it through that perspective, that that's the game he's playing, maybe he's not that unintelligent. Maybe he's uniquely skilled at that game, and that's the problem. That there's a misdiagnosis of what he's doing, and then therefore, why does that matter, right? Who cares, right? Who cares if he's better at that game? Well, if the objective is to beat him, right? If the objective is we need him out of office, it's important you understand the game he's playing. And if you just dismiss him as somebody who's unintelligent and, will obviously just beat him, well, you kind of end up where you end up right now. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when he started running, that was the story, that he is incompetent, can't be president, shouldn't be president, doesn't know what he's doing, can't even give a speech about policies, doesn't understand the policies, and everybody seemed to assume that would eventually catch up and he would be gone. But 4 or 5 years later, where we sit here, and if you're not a fan of Trump and you're concerned that he might win the election, because right now I know Biden's in the lead in the polls, but doesn't mean much, you have to wonder, how'd that happen? I thought we diagnosed this thing pretty easily, that he's not intelligent, incompetent. That'll become clear. And what people often like to blame is, well, his followers, the people that vote for him, are clearly also unintelligent. Well, now you're going down a path, right? I mean, is it possible? Sure, it's possible. But is it that 50% of the population, or however many voted, whatever it is, 40 million, 50 million, are all that unintelligent? Maybe. But it seems like there's something else at play here. Again, it seems as if he's playing a different game, and that needs to be accounted for. And I'll close on this, to that point of that he's playing a different game. What I often wonder is if his game is that, if his game, like he made a tweet today, I believe, which simple tweet, college football needs to happen, or something along those lines. And he'll make tweets like that all the time, just kind of one-liners that are obviously polarizing, obviously going to drum up emotion. And on Twitter, for example, you get quickly hundreds of thousands of responses to this tweet, many of which are people that hate him and believe he's unintelligent. And they're commenting and they're sharing it and they're saying, can you believe this moron? And can you believe, again, if you understand his game is to just get exposure. That's what it's about. That's what feeds his ego. That's what he needs. That's what he wants. And every time you post and say how stupid he is and how ridiculous it is that he's talking about college football when COVID's going on, it's the saying how it goes, right? For every action, there's an equal, an equivalent reaction, right? There's a balance to this. That's what happens. For all the anger that gets built up, it builds up more support on his side. So it makes me wonder, is the answer, if you don't want Trump to be your president, or if you just want him to change the way he acts, maybe stop meeting him head on, because that's what he's looking for. That's the game he's playing. Maybe understand the game and say, hey, I'm not going to give it to him anymore. Maybe we just go radio silence for weeks. If the media, social media, Democrats, or whoever opposes him, even Republicans who don't like him, rather than taking the bait every time to call him out and to criticize and to challenge, although it's justified and at times and it's warranted at times, you're feeding into his game. Be smarter, right? If he's unintelligent, but he seems to be winning to an extent, well, something doesn't add up. Maybe you're not acting that intelligent. Maybe be smarter and recognize that. And that doesn't mean you let him get away with anything, right? Obviously, you can still fight the battles through political, legislative, judicial processes. But in the media, in the court of public opinion, which is the main game he is playing, don't take the bait. Don't play the game. Give him nothing. Give him radio silence, and maybe that changes things dramatically.